we are back at the shop. We are working on our final, well, maybe never final.
Hopefully our final phase, yeah.
But a final phase of improving our recovery gear for this rig.
For a while. It's time to look at the jacking solutions that I need to have. I really had a poor solution before with just one tall little Harbor Freight 8-ton jack. So now I've gone overboard. I've gone from one tiny little jack to two large jacks,
These guys.
both 8 tons. And I think it's going to help me develop a lot of different potential for getting unstuck, which I seem to get myself into. We're also looking at some of the winch accessories that I have. And we put the winch on last summer, and I just have the basic rope and a few odds and ends. But I really envision several different recovery scenarios that we might need more gear. And so I've made that gear, and I show you in this video how that gear is going to be used.
Oh, and hopefully this is the last installment of a recovery gear video. I will post links of the previous videos in our description. Hope you take a look at those.
If you have a piece of recovery gear that we don't have and you think we should have, please put a comment in the below and let us know. This is another project that's been years in the planning, and it's past due because we already had the need and didn't have the equipment. This goes back to our getting stuck last summer. We slid off a dirt track into a swamp, and we couldn't get out. So one of the things I tried to do was to jack up the axle to get either the traction mats under it or something under it. And this is what I had. Let's see, I had this Harbor Freight 8.5-ton jack, which I just measured. This jack actually has a stroke of 5 1/4 inches and will carry 8 tons. So this jack works just fine for lifting the truck up when the truck's on concrete. But the base, if the base sits on dirt, it's going to sink in, and I have had it sink in when I've tried to jack the truck up to rotate tires when it's on even gravel. So I made this base for it. And this base is 8 inches by 10 inches, so there's 80 square inches of additional area there. So when we got stuck, I decided that I would get the base out and see if I could jack the truck up. I was wise enough to just look at the ground and say there's no way that this base, even this large, is going to support that. So I actually laid a little log cabin firewood underneath of it, still jacked it into the ground. This system with a 5 1/2 inch stroke, and I've gotten stuck twice with this jack and tried to jack myself out of it. The first time I was successful, but it took me a very long time to do it because it's only 8 1/2 inch stroke. I normally have to crawl under the truck in order to place the jack. So that's not a very good system. So my system that I have developed, the base plate, is 12 1/2 inches square. So this is 150 inches of bearing area versus this with just 80 inches. The bottom of the jack plate has got cleats in it, which are 1 inch tall, which will sink into the ground and prevent the jack base from sliding. So this is my jack plate. This is a universal lug, and now what I'm using, instead of an 8-ton jack with a 5-inch stroke, so now I'm going to be using an 8-ton jack with a 20-inch stroke. And so how do you get this under the truck? Well, the answer is you don't. Because if you're stuck, the odds of you getting under the truck are extremely low to begin with. So this jack is now designed for me to be able to hook into my receiver system that I have on the back of the truck and on the front of the truck. This here is the top of the jack, so the hydraulic piston sits in the bottom of this thing. The through pin holds it on, and then this socket goes up and engages my lifting bracketry. This one is built on 1.5 inch piece of aluminum square bar. And the new jacks that I have, in addition to the hydraulic ram being better, are larger, and it's actually too large. It won't fit this. I couldn't really practically enlarge this. So I'm now going to make something similar. Instead of with 1.5 inch piece of bar, a piece of 2 inch, which is what this is. And so this is going to have a hole bored in the bottom of it, and then a hole bored through the side of it. So this is an adapter, which allows me to put this into the receiver and then put the jack in there like this. And you can see here I can adjust however deep I'm stuck. I can adjust it like that, or if I need to go the other direction, I can also go like this. So this is my adjustable system. And then you notice the jack won't stand up by itself, and that's intentional because I can imagine one of the best ways to get out of being stuck is to lift the vehicle up and swing it over to the side. This is referred to as casting. So this jack can actually, it will lean all the way over so that the jack can actually be jacked up and then pushed sideways to get the wheels out of the ruts that it drove into. So in addition to that, this jack is a double pump jack. You can see there's 2 pump cylinders here. So the jack itself, I can probably jack this jack from bottom to top at about the same time and about the same rate as my 8-inch jack does, because this jack just moves so much faster. I originally attempted to try to use an air jack to do this, and I realized that the air power was going to be a lot more than the air that I had to power it with, and also it slowed down so dramatically lifting the truck that it was going to take forever, and it was actually faster to jack it by hand. Again, there's 2 other parts I haven't yet built. One is to make it turn this into an earth anchor, so if I have to winch with the truck, I can actually drive something into the ground using the jack and the weight of the truck to push it into the ground that will allow me to anchor the truck. The other part of this is to make some adapter that I can attach to a wheel and actually jack the wheel up from the side, because jacking the frame up, which is what it does when you hook in the hitch, allows the axle to hang down. So you have to jack it up farther. That's where I'm headed. One of these is going to go in my Jeep. One of them is going to be in the truck. I'm going to be able to have both of them together for the truck if I need it. But again, each jack is 8 tons, so each jack will lift up the entire weight of the truck if it needed. These base plates are made from a piece of 1/4-inch plate steel that's 12.5 inches square. On the bottom of it is a piece of 4-inch by 1/4-inch angle iron that's 1 inch tall, welded on. The top of the plate is 1/4-inch by 1.5-inch flat bar, welded into a reinforcing grid so that we can distribute the weight. And of course, the piece of material that the jack hooks to, this is a piece of 1 inch thick by 2 inches wide by 2 inches tall steel. But you can see where I've had to, grind it down to a thinner profile in order to fit inside the jack foot. And of course, the pin that goes through it is a piece of 5/8 of an inch chromed steel shaft. This is a hitch adapter here. This is a piece of 2-inch square internal, 2.5-inch square external 1/4-inch wall tubing. And this tubing here is a 2-inch square tube that's only 3/16 wall. That's the same as this is 3/16 wall. So this is all 3/16 wall, but it's gusseted on about a 1/4-inch plate on the side of it here. And it goes together, like I say, either like this or like this, depending on how high the hitch is and how high the vehicle is, to make adjustments for height. And then the pin drops through and clips on in order to hold it whatever height I want to be at. And of course, this also inserts into the 2-inch receivers that I have on the front of the back of the truck. I wanted to be able to jack the front of the truck up. In order to do that, I need to have something very substantial and very closely connected to the frame. So I've added these 2 receiver tubes on it here, so I can put something in there that I can grab a hold of the front of the vehicle and lift it up. So those are very substantial mounting points. So there's 3 on the back and 2 on the front that it could go into. One possibility is, because I have 2 sets, if I can use the 2 on the back or the 2 on the front, I can actually partially jack up one side and then put another jack in at an angle and actually jack the vehicle over sideways, which may not be necessary, but it's possible. Now that the jack system has been designed and built, now it's time to test. One of the ways I've been stuck before is I have the wheels dig in, and all of a sudden you're stuck, you can't get out. You can shovel a little bit in front and rear, but if you wanted to jack the tire up and get a traction board underneath of it, or if you wanted to put some rock or something underneath of it, I got no way that I can crawl underneath the truck. It's going to be prohibitive. So this is my original jack. It's got a 8x10 bearing plate. It will go underneath the axle on good terrain, but I think it's a very, very minimal utility to me if I'm stuck. So I've gone through thoughts of how I might be able to lift the wheels, lift the vehicle using some manual jacking that's not overly complicated. And so this is what I've come up with for jacking up a wheel. This would be my situation where a wheel is dug down and I want to get it out of the ground so I can throw stuff under it, or I can get a traction mat under it, but I can't crawl into the truck. So if I've jacked from the bumper, then I have all the suspension decompression to deal with, which is meaning I really have to jack the vehicle up high in order to get the wheel out of the ground, which I might be able to do, but I'd rather jack the wheel directly. So this is the method of jacking the wheel directly. I use one of my adapters, and this adapter actually has other uses, but this is one of the 2 uses I decided to put it to. So the adapter is here with a soft shackle through the spokes of the wheel with a 5/8 inch steel pin through it to grab a hold of the soft shackle. And I have a piece of 4-inch flat bar about 8 inches long in between here, because the first time I tested this 2-inch wide part really made a depression in the tire. I wouldn't want to have to knock the tire off of the rim if it was already aired at low pressure. So just adding this backing plate seems to work. The jack is a double pumping jack, which means each upstroke and downstroke lifts it up, so it doesn't take very long to lift it off the ground. And the jack itself has 20 inches of stroke. And if you saw this, I can put the pin in a place where I can kind of get maximum jack compression. So as I'm jacking it up to lifting it off the ground, it doesn't take very long for it to be off the ground, and it is, and I'm not working very hard to do that. It does a pretty good job. It presses into the tire a little bit. Looks like 3/16 steel plate is bent, and it's pushing on that. So before I had this a piece of 1/4 inch angle, so that might be what I need to have in order to make this work. But the wheel's off the ground, and I could easily jack it up even higher. One of the things that I do have a problem with is because this base is 12 inches square, it has to sit away from the tire in order to do this. So the jack is at an angle, and it's pushing the vehicle to the driver's side at the moment. I don't think that's a problem. It might be good in that what I might be able to do is, if I wanted to actually move the vehicle sideways, the entire vehicle, I could say jack this one up clear of the hole that it's in and put the other jack on the bumper on the other side, and all I have to do is take the pressure off that other wheel, and the other wheel will probably slide sideways. Now this will go back down as it pivots, and the reason why this jack is built with a pivoting mount here is to allow that to be able to happen. You can think of it might be somewhat of a stability risk or security risk, so you have to keep that in mind too. This is just the first trial, and I really like these jacks. I'm pretty happy with the way that this is starting out. Since I can jack in this particular case, now I'm jacking from the frame, so I'm lifting the body of the vehicle up, and eventually it would lift the front tire up if that's what I was trying to do. Kind of how I imagined the worst case scenario. If I needed to jack the vehicle, if I had both wheels dug down in the rear, I needed to jack it up and probably needed to shift it over a little bit. And so what I'm imagining that I could do is I could jack up with one, take the other one and move it off to the side a little bit, and as I raise this one, it's going to push the truck, and so that's part of the hinging mechanisms on the bottom of the thing. But it all works pretty well. The jacks are very powerful. And as you can see, they definitely lift the truck, and with the adjustment here, I can get my full 20 inches of stroke out of each of these jacks if I think I need it. I'm in the shop here, but I want to demonstrate how the winch accessories that I built are going to be used. In this situation here, I'm using my camper jack from my old Lance camper as a demonstration of an anchor, and this is a demonstration of how, if I were to attach to a single line pole to a dedicated anchor, this is what it would look like. This is a closed-end hitch connector with a soft shackle, possibly a tree saver around this, but this is fairly limiting in the ability of be able to winch. I think one of the things I'm going to have is I'm going to go out and buy a 150-foot line extension for my winch, and that's going to change up a lot of the things that I may need. So here's the most basic mechanism which I might be needing, which is to use a snatch ring with a soft shackle and attach back to the other end of the truck with another soft shackle onto one of the factory recovery points. It's simple, but as soon as I do this, now I only have half the effective length of my winch cable. My winch rope is a total of 92 feet long. I got to leave about 8 or 10 feet of it on the winch drum. So I really only have about 42 to 45 feet of total length in this particular case. So I might need some way to extend this snatch ring from the anchor point, or I might need some way to extend the length of the total winch cable. This is probably one of the first scenarios that I can imagine myself being in if I need to have a double line pull using a snatch ring, and I'm at long distance to the anchor. I'm going to have to use a winch extension. So this piece of climbing rope here is a rappelling rope. It's my example of how a winch extension gets used, because the winch extension has loops at either end, and you really can't tie a knot in it anywhere in the middle. You've got to find some way to shorten it to be the appropriate length. And so that's where this device here comes in. This is referred to as an X-Lock. If you can see here, the top loop here is brought through the ring and looped around these two ears. The one from the anchor, or one from the end of the fixing of the rope comes back and loops through it similarly. But this allows you to shorten the winch rope without actually tying any knots in it. This is just one way to do it. This X-Lock is built for this purpose. This is a copy of Factor 55's load distribution plate. It's my own little customization. It's bigger and heavier than the one that they make, and these ears on the side also extend out larger. And this device can do exactly the same rigging as this can. This is how the same rig is done with my copy of Factor 55's load distribution plate. This is a much heavier plate with longer ears to specifically designed to optimize for this purpose. But again, the rope, all the excess rope is in these two loops here, and allows us to winch without having to tie any knots in the rope. And here's probably the most extreme situation where I can imagine myself into, which requires basically to use everything that I have. This is a case where I'm going to have to pull a vehicle out from over here while I am here, and my anchor is here that is used to cause a line redirection. So I'm coming from the winch to the winch line extension, through a snatch ring, to the recover vehicle, which has got a snatch ring on it, to the X-Lock, which is shortening all the excess rope, back to the load distribution plate, which allows all these multiple connections to each seek their own natural direction. If I were to try to do this all together by putting the snatch ring and this anchor in this thing, the anchor would interfere with the snatch ring. So this is kind of the whole package here. Very conceivable, I think, that this could happen where you're on a road, guy's off the road, you can't change your vehicle direction, you want to bring the guy off the road or back on the road. You're going to need all this gear in order to make this happen. So that's why I built it. So here's just a brief summary of all the gear that it took to make that last connection happen. And this is a scenario I absolutely envision can happen. So if you ever want to be able to recover a person off the side of the road from a different direction you're facing, this is what it takes. It takes 4 soft shackles, 2 snatch rings, 1 screw pin bull shackle, the X-Lock, the load distribution plate, a tree saver, which you didn't see but which would have been used on my anchor, and then the winch line extension, this is just a rappelling rope as an example of that. But this, I carry just a little bit more than this hardware. It took a lot of things to make that recovery happen, if that's the situation you find.
Hitch links. These are a recovery item that is used to insert into a 2-inch receiver and attach something to recover with. I prefer to use soft shackles as opposed to steel shackles. These have a breaking strength of about 45,000 pounds versus the steel shackles, which break probably around 20. When you buy a hitch link, typically what they're going to have is they're going to have this square shank, and then they're going to have a reduced tab that comes out here into an eyelet that the shackle can go through, and that's not particularly strong. Because I have an 18,000 pound winch and a 13,000 pound vehicle, I feel like I need something stronger. I was able to pick up a bar of 3-inch wide by 14-inch long by 2-inch thick aluminum from the metal store. Probably cost me $10–15. Hitch links like these are made and are available that are big enough to accept a soft shackle. So this is the problem, is the ones that will accept a 3/4 inch pin from a screw pin bull shackle, that hole's not big enough to put this through. And I put an 1.5 inch hole in this because I could, and so it makes it a very simple matter to mount the soft shackle on here, and this is how it would be used. I made 2 of them because the piece of metal I got was just happened to be just the right size for 2 of them. But I always figured that, I might need one in my vehicle, I might need one in another vehicle to recover. Again, this is 3 inches across, this is a little over 7¼ inches long. Got 2 5/8 inch holes so you can mount it in the receiver either like this or like this, depending on what you're trying to hook to it. This is 3 inches wide, an 1.5 inch hole, which means the sidewalls of each of these are 3/4 of an inch thick, and it's 3/4 of an inch thick in the front. It's aluminum, having a tensile strength of about 45,000 psi probably. This 2-inch by 3/4 inch makes it about 1.5 square inches on both sides, so about 3 square inches at 40 to 45,000 psi. This has got a tensile strength of 120,000 pounds. So it's a substantially strong piece of hardware. You can buy something like this. They make some, not with as big a hole, but they make something like this for about $100 a piece. Is about as cheap as I've seen them. The ones that use the screw pin bow shackle are $25–30 a piece, but they're not going to work for my needs. So. start of another project. This is a piece of 3/4 inch aluminum plate. I just cut it on the table saw here down to this size. What I'm making here is, you can see on the shortening device for a winch rope. Commercially, it's made and patented called an X-Lock. Won't go into how it's used, but essentially what it's for is when you're outside in an environment where you're winching something and you need to shorten up your winch line, you can't just tie a knot in it. This device allows you to wrap it around the device so that you can get it unlocked. There's going to be a hole in the center here and then a cut around all 4 edges. So what I'm going to do is, I've got the centers of a bunch of 3/4 inch holes marked, and this is a 1 inch hole here and here to produce this radius, and so I'm going to put it on the milling machine. I'm going to drill all these holes, and then once the holes are drilled, I'm going to put it on a bandsaw and cut out the perimeter. Once the perimeter's cut out, I'll sand it down on the edges to make sure that the edges are straight and flat, and then I'll use a wood router to radius all parts of it on both sides. The reason why I'm making it instead of buying it is most of the ones that are on the marketplace are designed for winches that are smaller than mine are, for Jeeps and the like, and because I have such a heavy truck, I want my device to be bigger. So this has got a 1 inch web all the way around it. It's made out of 3/4 inch plate. Most of the other devices on the market are made with, they're made with 3/4 inch plate, but they only have a 3/4 inch web in there, so they're smaller and they're made for smaller rope. We hope you found this video useful. I do a lot of crazy stuff. Some people think it's crazy, some people don't. I hope you enjoyed seeing what I did, and if it helped you in any way, please leave us a comment, like, and subscribe.
Give us a thumbs up. And until next time,
bye.
Bye.